Hi, I'm Kiana. I am a mental health therapist for Optimum Joy. So, funny story, I always knew that I wanted to grow up to help people. I come from a political family, and so I grew up always seeing someone being helped in some kind of way. So, when I went to school, I actually wanted to be a journalism major. I had to read a book called Half the Sky for our freshman summer read, and it changed my life. Just reading stories about how young girls were having to endure such horrible conditions. I said I wanted to go to school and learn how to become behind the camera so that their stories can be told. And as much as I love that, I realized I didn't actually want to travel the world. I wanted to tell stories right here where I was from. And so I ended up becoming a sociology major where we got to learn about stories. We got to learn about those stories being told and from the ways in which our world is shaped and formed. And as much as I love that work, getting a degree in sociology didn't sound like something that would be able to be feasible. And so I ended up getting my master's in social work. And funny enough, I didn't actually dream of being a counselor. I just wanted to create programs so that young girls could figure out their identity and deal with issues of self-esteem. Growing up in Chicago, I got to see how that world could shape who you are and how it could limit you. And so I said, okay, I want to create programs to empower young girls. And as I was doing that work, doing group counseling, I still didn't really see myself as a therapist. I just saw myself as someone that was facilitating a safe space for people. And as I was doing that work, I realized that I had so many of my girls that would come and talk to me for one-on-one counseling. And I had this limited capacity to actually be able to see one-on-one and do groups. And so after doing that for 2-3 years, I realized this is the work I actually want to be doing. I want to be a therapist. And so here I am. My favorite thing about being a therapist is seeing the moment where my clients come out of the false identity they've been living under because of their trauma. When they have that moment where they realize that all the shame, all the condemnation, all the thoughts that have been negative, they come to the truth of who they really are. And they're able to begin to self-actualize and become that person that they've been wanting to be. Something I really enjoy doing is going for walks. I love being outside. Something I realized during the fall season is being outside with the leaves, seeing all the autumn colors. That's my favorite. But when I can't go outside, I love sitting in front of my fireplace and cozying up and reading a good book. I've been trying to get into the mindful coloring, but sitting and reading a book with some tea or some cookies, that's probably my favorite right now. I have some really amazing people that just show up and make my life so great. But then the deeper I thought about it, probably my son. He is, such a gift. When he was first diagnosed with autism, I thought it was going to be this moment of like, what do I do? How do I get past this moment? And he teaches me joy in such a beautiful way. He can walk into a room and walk up to a stranger and just say, hey, let's be friends. And they respond and they want to be his friend. And he just can light up a room. And so I think watching him grow up, watching him just conquer his fears and to be this fearless little 6-year-old, yeah, I think he brings me the most joy. I really enjoy working with all different types of people, but I think that I have a special place in my heart for working with those who experience trauma very specifically. Again, being a native and growing up in Chicago, and just watching myself and others really struggle with their self-esteem and their identity, and seeing how experiencing traumatic events literally rewires your brain and impacts the way that you begin to live your life. And so now I can't even be who I want to be because I'm stuck feeling fear, or I'm stuck in this place of hypervigilance, or I'm stuck in this place where I can't move past it. And being able to work with people to not only help them to put the pieces back together again, but also help them to also improve their self-esteem, their identity, the way that they see the world, so they can see themselves, so they can see others, or even see God the way that they really want to see them. So I think that's specifically the area that I love to work with, but also I love working with narrative therapy, cognitive behavioral therapy, really having that trauma-informed lens to begin looking at some of the things that you may have been believing that aren't quite true, right? Having some time to reframe those thoughts. Also being able to look at what's the story I've been telling about myself and what's the story that I want to be living from now. So that's the area I think I would be most passionate about working in. one thing I really want to emphasize is that when you've experienced any kind of trauma, it blocks your ability to really receive any kind of spiritual practice, very specifically in wanting to connect with God. Because if I've experienced on earth an earthly father that was absent, it's going to be really difficult for me to see God as being present. And so oftentimes when I work with my clients who are, they have a Christian formation, one thing that we really get to do is not only deal with the trauma and the clinical aspect, but we also get to work with the trauma and how that they may have experienced it from the church. Maybe they've experienced it from a religious upbringing that was very abusive, or maybe they just are having a hard time being able to identify who God is in the midst of all of that. And so that has become an area that I have tended to really try to specialize in and work with my clients to make sure that we can identify those points of not only their resilience, not only their coping skills, but also this place where they're wanting to connect with God in a deeper and richer way. So I'm actually from Chicago, born and raised from the south side of Chicago. And when I was 15, unfortunately I had a major loss in my family that actually led me to move to the south suburbs. It was difficult for me. It was a difficult transition, as in any transition that you go through. But eventually it became the place that became my community and it became my home. And so when I left for college and I came back, that's where I came back to. That's where my family lived. And so the south suburbs, specifically Flossmoor, has become the place in which I have known to call home for me. And so when I thought about where I would see my clients, where I thought about the office that I would serve out of, I've worked in Chicago, I've worked in the south suburbs. When I thought about where I wanted my practice to be, where I really wanted to serve clients, I wanted it to be from the place that I call community and a place where I feel like I am most at home. And that's actually in Flossmoor. Something I would want my clients to know the first time they're coming to therapy is that it's actually not as scary as you think it is. Once you get into the room and you get comfortable and you get oriented being with someone, you realize how empowering it is to have a whole hour where someone they have to listen to you and they get to respond with empathy and with understanding, and it becomes a space that's yours. Like, but before you might not have had something that feels like yours, this is a space where it's about you, it's about your growth, it's about your healing, and it's about you having a space where you get to become the person you've been wanting to become. Hi, my name is Kiana. I'm a mental health. Mm-hmm. So that was not my fault that time. No. Oh, I feel misty-eyed. Oh
I do
gosh.
too. I do too.
Something I really enjoy doing. That thing is coming from me.
Go for it.
And this water's really good.
I changed the filter recently.
Man, I could tell. It's fresh. Praise God. Oh, we've been recording this whole time, haven't we?
Yeah, that's what the
This is how y'all get those bloopers.
I think you might be done.
Okay. Woo.
That's a wrap.
Are we good?
We're good.
That's a wrap. Do I need to say the whole thing again?